Hey, this is James with VFX Nomad, and we are continuing with our little canyon project. So far we've imported our motion path, which has our camera and our ships in it. We've imported the core assets, the combiners that then lay those out, and the scatterers, which are scattering based on the occlusion between the floor and any other geometry. We're in a pretty good place now where we want to see what happens when we put all of this together. So first things first is we need to create an image. The image itself is what we're going to look at or what we're going to output, and that image can be constructed of various layers put on top of each other, but at the very minimum it's going to need one. To do 3D, we're going to want a 3D layer, so we just say new 3D layer. There we go. This 3D layer, as we've gone over once or twice, is going to look for various things. So scroll down here, take a quick look, and the first thing that it's going to ask you for is a camera. The camera we have, it's here under our motion path, so we plug that guy in. The next thing that it wants is a renderer, and we don't have one yet, so we're going to create new path tracer and just plug that in. It then asks us where our lights are, and that's a good point because so far we haven't created any lights. Here we are going to import our next part of the project. File, import project. Have a quick look, and there should be a folder called light rig. Import this. Inside the light rig we have an environment light and we have a sunlight. Now your environment light is going to be reading this map file here. Ignore the stream map file for a second. I've put it in there to show you something, but this particular instance, the environment map is looking for this. As you've pulled it into your machine, this path is going to be wrong. It's going to be broken. So I want you to just click on the map file, navigate your way to this lesson, and look at Grand Canyon Yuma Point. And in here, you're going to want to grab the HDR 3K if you want, or the blurry small one. This file itself, I've downloaded from here, HDR Labs, and it says you can do whatever you want for it as long as I tell you where you got it from. So I'm telling you where I got it from, and it's this one here. So it's free, and you can download a bunch of other ones if you wish. So back to the point at hand, thank you for the free HDR files, and I think it's going to work quite nicely for us here. We create a group in here and we call it light or lights. Done. In the light group, we're going to want to put the lights in it. Environment and sun. Okay. Going back to where we were, we click on the layer again. Go to the top option and it says, where are my lights? We now know. We say, there they are. And we have geometry, shadows, ray tracing, and global illumination. Let's lock this for a moment. And we know that we want everything to do this render group that we've made. And as we start dropping them in, you will see them come to life, which is nice. There we go. We haven't assigned any shaders yet, so it's got this kind of blown out white over everything, but at least we can see that something is happening. Shaders being the next thing that we want to do. And you will see in this little bundle that there is a materials project. Import that. We're getting pretty close. Just going to look in here for a second. To make this a bit clearer and look a bit more normal, I'm going to just create a basic gray shader. Here we can call it gray. And on the layer itself, if we scroll down to the bottom, we have this override. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to override everything with gray for a second. Hold on, I didn't make it gray. Click on the gray shader. Here we go, front color, 0.78, no idea why. 0.18, that's 50% gray. And there we go. We're getting a bit of a render. So for the first time, we're able to look through our camera and take a look at what we're probably going to get out of here. From this point, what we're going to do is we're going to start building up our shading layer. Right click in here, new shading layer. Shading layers are just a way that I've got used to doing this. You could, in theory, go through and drop everything on one by one, but you'll probably see here that this can be quite a neat way to do everything. So what do I want? Shading layer editor. Sorry, my brain fell apart for a second. First things first. Now that we've seen this render, I'm just going to zoom out for a moment so it doesn't keep rendering. We're going to select off the gray override. And then instead, we are going to plug in this shading layer. The shading layer is here. Click on it. The shading layer editor looks like it's doing nothing. We need to add some entries in here. We're going to use a bunch, so I don't know, that's that many. And to get us started, we're going to say everything, and then let's take a look at what materials we have. Most of the things in here are going to want to be rock, I would wager. So why don't we just put that on everything to start with. We zoom in here and we take a look. Now, if you're not getting anything at this point, it's again the same thing with the light. You need to come to this rock material, and there are two map files. One's called cracked, and the other one is called map file 3, which isn't the best name. Anyway, this map file 3 is looking for rock text. Click on our lesson, go to our lesson bundle, go to our textures, and rock text, and it looks like I've converted it to a .tx for you, so use that. And then we're going to do the same with cracked, and that's looking for cracked ground. Plug that in to crackedground.tx, and we're away. Right, we can take a quick look and see that, yeah, okay, cool. Everything's yellowy orange like a rock. Fine. Next thing we want is that these ships that we've got are not going to be made of rock. So what do we want them to be made of? Let's look. We know that the geometry is called ships. In fact, we know that it's called ship shape. But for now, we're going to call it ship. So we've done star. So anything, anywhere, called ship. And then anything after the word ship. And we want the material that's assigned to that to be this metal. So metal underscore PBR. Apply. Same thing applies here. If you're not getting the textures, you should go in, come down here, and plug in your textures. Let me just make sure you've got them all. Spaceship, and there you go, bump. And then rinse and repeat with the other one, diffuse white, and reflection. I've already got them plugged in, so I'm not going to follow you on that tedious journey. Okay, next thing we've got is these gray balls. We're on the little arrow thing, so I'm going to click on the gray ball, and we see that it's called gray and the other one's called chrome. That makes our lives pretty easy. Star gray, star chrome. In the gray box, we have this nifty look called ref balls. We're gonna say gray, you are this gray shader, and chrome, you are gonna be this reflection. Off we go. So from here, we let it cook for just a minute so that we can take our bearings and see what's working and what's not. The chrome ball itself I quite like because we can see how we're looking with the sky and everything like that. The environment light at this moment in time does not render I wish it did. There is a way around it, which is the create IBL button. I don't know if they still have it, probably somewhere. Is that it? Anyway, whatever. I don't like using it just because I'm fussy. I personally can't be bothered. I just want it to render. And it doesn't, so therefore I don't do it. But if you wanted to, you could go through the process of making a big sphere around it all and mapping it to it and whatever, but it just sounds like a ball ache. So we have no sky, but we can see it in the reflection, which is nice because we can see it on our little planes and everything like that. Right, so the next thing that we want to do is these plants and whatever, they appear to be made out of rock as well, which isn't the best. So we have a little plant PBR. Great. We'll just drop you in there for a moment. And we know from earlier, but we can always go back in and check, that this dude is called root. Now, catch here is if I tell it to become root, it's going to assign the plant material to this root here, which may or may not be what we want to happen. So there are roots down here. If I click on this PBR for a second and I make it something silly like that, you should be able to see pink here immediately, and we don't, which means that that's not working. It's probably not working because of this guy down here, which is flooding everything. So we need to, in this case, think about what's happening. We have a root, and that's being spat out by the scatterer. Okay, so the scatterer is this guy here. We have a scatter group, in fact. So here we go, scatter underscore plants. So if we target this word plants, we might get a better result. Star plants. We press that. We change the color. And there we go. We can see that we got some pink stuff. So I'm not going to keep the pink, but that allows you to see that it is assigning correctly. At this point in time, we have our plants. We have our rocks, which are covered by this wild card down here. We have our ground and everything else. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think we're in relatively good shape to at least get started. Now the ray tracer is at its lowest possible setting. So if we allow this to finish on a particular section, you'll see that it's likely to be all a bit crunchy. Yeah, I mean, you got some weird lines, things aren't looking so great. And a lot of that's going to be because your ray tracer settings are so low. You can go here and we can change it to kind of the minimum one that you would want to use, which would be something like this. And at that point, you're probably going to get a much nicer result out of it. Also, if we look at our image for a moment, we can see that the resolution multiplier is on 50%. So it's actually half of a 720 image. So those two things combined, I think that's somewhat acceptable. If you increase this ray tracer, well, rather this path tracer, a lot more than this, then your renders are going to take a really, really long time. So that's where I cheated in what I did. I put the background at 1 and I put the jets at 3. And you can kind of see that I'm paying for that when we look at the final render. But I'd already left it rendering overnight and it hadn't finished yet. And I couldn't be bothered to sit here for days waiting for this thing to come off. So yeah, so I was lazy. Sorry.